My deceased puma, which was living inside my deceased shark, have both returned to me as spirit guides. They've telepathically told me how to levitate inanimate objects. Oh no! My gym membership is useless!
Vaya con Dios. And by that, I mean go play Tropical Freeze. I believe that is the proper Spanish. First, though, welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell, and guess what? I have a Nintendo Switch. Yes, only a year plus later than everyone else. Definitely later than my co-host on this episode, Mr. Josh Wallen from off of the Geek Critique. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I gave you the hard sell on the Switch like over a year ago now, and it took you that long to finally pick one up?
Times be tough, Josh. What with
Was
the
I not
economy,
convincing enough?
What with the economy and what have you, times be tough. And you know what? No, what I wanted to do was I generally wait to buy my Nintendo consoles until they announce a big Donkey Kong release for them. Infamously, I did not get a Nintendo Wii until 2010. So, yeah.
Oh, I know. You and Nintendo have an understanding. I remember that.
So, yeah, I mean, 1 year and some months tacked onto that is not bad with my track record. But, I finally have one, and we're talking a little bit about my first week or so with the Switch, as well as, of course, the meat of this episode, the banana meat, if you will, the pulpy.
Ew.
What? How do you describe banana meat? Is it banana like the flesh? It's.
I'm leaving you to this one, dude. You're digging your own grave here.
The gummy, pasty goop that is the banana meat of this episode, which is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Switch. Now, we are recording this episode on Mother's Day, and Josh, I've always thought of you a little bit as a mother to me, so this is
In what
really...
way?
Your videos have inspired me to be better. # be best. They've inspired me to make better YouTube content, and to that I say, I cannot even hope to match your content, so I'm just making a shit video right now about parrots. Googly-eyed parrots in the Donkey Kong series. But,
You'll be the next PewDiePie in no time.
I hope not. No, that guy's been up to some stuff, from what I hear.
Perhaps you don't want to be the next PewDiePie now that I think about it.
No. And I don't know who. I want to be the Geek Critique. That's who I want to be. And, you know, I wanted to have you on this episode because you were one of the first proponents about getting Tropical Freeze on the Switch. It's something I think you talked about on this podcast and, of course, on your own videos as well. So, you know, now it's finally come to pass. We have the game in our hands, so I will be interested to hear your thoughts. And I'm always interested to hear my own thoughts. I don't know what I'm going to say. It's just comes out, and I'm like, wow, that's surprising, delightful, or horrifying.
No, dude, I'm hyped in general just to hear what you think about the Switch finally.
Oh yeah, I hate it. It's not as good as an Xbox. # fake paid actor.
Doesn't even come with it doesn't even come with a Kinect.
It doesn't.
How can you play video games without a Kinect?
I can't play a video game unless I'm dancing about in my living room. And, I mean, there's some truth to that because I do have, I think, restless leg syndrome or something. I can't sit still. Maybe it's early onset Parkinson's. We'll find out in a few years, people. It'll be a delightful journey we'll all take together.
Real hardcore gamers prefer motion controls, Hyle.
Well, okay. In the meantime, before I get to Parkinson's, before I get to the slush fund Kinect Sports Rivals, E3 is coming up, and DK Vine will be in attendance yet again this year. For E3 2018, we have vacated the DK Vine Party House, and we are now going to be in Koreatown. That's right, Koreatown. Now, I haven't looked, Josh, if it's North Koreatown or South Koreatown, so I hope I'm not walking into any
That's an important distinction.
tense political situations here, right? But if it is North Koreatown, I will personally negotiate with Kim Jong-un to denuclearize. I'll do it. I feel like I know the art of the deal. I feel like I am extremely capable of doing this, having hosted a Donkey Kong podcast for going on 6 years now. And if it's successful, as thanks, I will bring the guy on the DK Vine staff. I will rebrand him as Kim Kong-un, and I think he has some great articles in him about getting K. Rool into the next Smash Brothers. I just have a hunch. Certainly he would know more about getting K. Rool into Smash Brothers than getting food into his people's mouths. But, BAM! Slamming.
Look, that all sounds very inspiring and very important and everything, but do you want to do that? Do you want to negotiate a peace treaty and finally put an end to all this conflict? Or would you rather take that opportunity to ask him which Brothers Bear is best?
Well, you know what? I can do a little bit of A, a little bit of B. You know, kill two parallel birds with one stone. You just have to throw it up. You'll get both of them. So, I like that you can laugh. I like that I can say a comment like that, which in ordinary day-to-day life would just be met with confused stares, and I can get you to laugh. Even somebody who dislikes Donkey Kong Country 3 to the extent you do, you laugh over it, so it's good.
But I love Perry the Parallel Bird.
That's good. I mean, I think Perry is one of those things where even if you dislike the game, you have to like Perry. It's kind of like the Star Wars prequels. Well, Darth Maul, you know, I like Darth Maul, but Perry is our Darth Maul. So this year for E3, I'm actually going to be joined by Mitchell Wolf. Mitchell Wolf, the future staffer, frequent Kongversation co-host. Mitchell Wolf will be my roommate in Koreatown. And, of course, I will also be joined by DK Vine E3 mascot, Helmast, the Dreadfully Evil. And I'm going to be on hand all week long to provide the Donkey Kong Universe coverage that the big guys, they just can't handle. And they don't want to handle it, Josh, and they don't know how to handle it. But I do. My life, my love, my lady will not be the sea. It will be providing you at home, round the clock until my heart stops coverage of everything related to the Donkey Kong universe, rare and platonic, at E3 2018. I will be searching high and low for stuff to report on. Even if we have nothing there, I will scrape the bottom of that FK barrel looking for it. So,
and I appreciate that because once again, the Geek Critique will not be going to E3. I just in case anybody who doesn't normally listen to the show is listening to it in this case. I'm not going to E3 because I just mostly talk about old games. Let's be honest.
Okay, but look, if DK Vine can get press credentials for E3...
No, it's not that I don't think I could do it. It's that I just spent an entire month making an episode about the Sega Dreamcast, and somehow I doubt there's going to be much about it at E3.
But it's like a treasure hunt, Josh. I mean, you've played Sea of Thieves with me. It's like a treasure hunt. You have to find the buried treasure at E3, and the thing I like about actually being there as opposed to being at home is I could make the news happen even if it's really forced. I can find something to report on. Where if I'm sitting at home, I have to rely on IGN or somebody to do it for me, and they're not going to do it. So it's going to be fun. It's exhausting. It's stress-inducing. The anxiety you feel leading up to it is off the charts. But once you're there, it just kind of takes off, and it's grueling, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. So join me for E3 2018. And this kind of guerrilla journalism, think about it, see what I did there? It's made possible thanks to our patrons. So, I don't like to beg. I'm not looking for handouts, but please consider supporting DK Vine on Patreon, because not only does all that money go back into the site, yes, it does, believe it or not. You're not seeing the fruits of it yet, but it's going back into the site. But it also pays for things like the quite expensive trip to E3, even with a media pass. it still costs a lot to get lodging, planes, or make travel arrangements, food. I mean, it's very, very costly. So, you support us. We provide that Donkey Kong journalism you so crave. And then we also give you rewards for backing us. Everyone gets a reward. I'm like Oprah with the cars here. $1 and up gets you high quality DK Vine stickers. Josh, you've gotten these stickers in the mail. You can attest to how high quality these stickers are. They're magnificent.
Yeah, they're actually they were on the walls of my old office, and I haven't properly decorated in my new office yet, but they will be up there again.
That's terrific. $2 and up gets you early bird conversations and YouTube videos. $5 and up lets you listen to every conversation live. So please, if you like the show, consider supporting us on Patreon in this, which is almost the busiest season of the video game journalism/media year. And you can find us at dkvine.com/Patreon. Finally, don't forget to follow DK Vine on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. We're at DK Space Vine on all three. And don't forget to hashtag bring back the spiders. Oh, and check out the Geek Critique, also on YouTube and Patreon. So your Dreamcast video, do you want to plug that real quick?
Well, it's speaking of Patreon, as of right now, it's only up on on the Patreon, but sure.
Okay.
But I guess what would be more appropriate for this episode is that I have, just in case you don't know who I am, or maybe you've heard Hyle talk about me before, I've done special really focused full-length documentary-style retrospectives on every single Donkey Kong Country game. So I've dove deep into this stuff, and if you haven't seen them, check them out.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's new to you, says NBC circa 1997. And we are nothing but, if not 90s fetishist here at DK Vine and the Geek Critique. So
right on.
That's quite apropos. You know what you're talking about, 90s kids. Only 90s kids will understand these references. I want to give a quick shout out to the live stream chat right now. I got Q-Burn in there, and he says both Perry and Darth Maul don't really do anything substantial, so the comparison is apt. That's true, I guess. Unfortunately, but I was going to make a joke about neither one having legs, but I guess Perry does have legs. He just doesn't really use them. He just
as long as we can agree that Kiddy Kong is the Jar Jar Binks of the Donkey Kong Country series, I'm fine.
I don't know, man. Professor Chops, I would argue, is the Jar Jar Binks. No. Kiddy Kong would be young Anakin, okay? He
See, that's where I was going at first, but then I was do I hate him even more than that?
Somebody like Professor Chops would be Jar Jar, and just the fans, he's just tonally wrong for the series. That's what I'll say there. All right.
Okay.
All right. But yes, back to Donkey Kong Country in the present day, and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze Switch. That, by the way, I have decreed that the official name of this version of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, in the parenthetical, Switch. So, because the Switch is silent. It's not actually in the name, but we have to differentiate it on the website. So, that's how we will be referring it. I will be referring it as Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze Switch. And I personally do not like to use the colon. I realize the colon is present in all official material and on the spine of the game case, but it bugs me, Josh. The colon in the title bugs me. Because they type it out, Donkey Kong Country : Tropical Freeze.
Right. So
that's
in your
trash.
idealized world, then would the spine not have a colon on it, but it would have the parenthetical switch at the end of the title?
No, I'm fine with the Switch being silent. It's like
right.
Mario Golf Game Boy Color. I'm fine with it not being there in the title, but the colon is really the bane of my existence here. Because, okay, here's my thing. I'm going to get up on a soapbox here. Okay, so Tropical Freeze is what you get in place of the number, the sequel number. So it's not Donkey Kong Country : 2. That's ridiculous. That's garbage. It's not Donkey Kong Country : Returns. That's absurd. So it's Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. You don't need a colon. Tropical Freeze is in place of the 2. It's in place of the 3. What you're saying is this is Donkey Kong Country nothing subtitle Tropical Freeze. As if Tropical Freeze was the Diddy's Conquest or the Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. That doesn't make any sense. Somebody should get fired for this blunder. I'm saying it right now. Star Trek Into Darkness had it right. Thank you, J.J. Abrams.
I don't know. I probably shouldn't even get into this because we could be here all day, but I'm inspired to play devil's advocate on this one. I think that the colon is probably... When you say Donkey Kong Country Returns, okay? That's one complete title. That's the game series Donkey Kong Country Returns. Okay. Easy to understand. The problem with Tropical Freeze is, it's like Tropical Freeze is sort of the name of the adventure that's happening, much in the same way that Diddy's Conquest was the name of Donkey Kong Country 2. So by putting a colon after it, you're kind of denoting Donkey Kong Country. It's already returned. It's not going to do that again. Tropical Freeze. It's sort of like putting an Oxford comma in. It's done for readability, because otherwise people who were just reading the title, not the logo, where it's very clearly delineated between, like, different sections by different fonts and whatever, but by saying Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, like, that might be more confusing for people.
But you realize the Oxford comma is not really in use anymore. Even most style guides discourage the use of the Oxford comma.
Oh, I'm very aware. I was a journalism major.
Okay. All right, and honestly, I stopped using the Oxford comma in college, and I only brought it back because Chad got on my case about not using it. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll use it. And then I realized, no, this is stupid. Nobody uses it. So I retired the Oxford comma again. So I've gone back and forth on the Oxford comma. Don't bring up the Oxford comma to me. But I'm just saying, DK Vine's style manual, we have one. It's 3,000 pages. And
dude, I'm with you. Honestly, I'm with you on the Oxford comma part. You argued against the colon so vigorously that I felt I had to argue against you.
I had to get my colon checked out, and the doctor argued against it quite vigorously as well. I
applaud you for having the restraint enough to wait until we were that deep into the conversation before you made that joke.
I had restraint when he was that deep into me as well. Trust me. Ha 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 ha. So anyway, if you're reading DK Vine material and you're wondering, why don't they ever use the colon in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze? That is why. And I'm sorry, I hear your points, Josh. I hear them. I understand them. I'm going to politely and respectfully disagree. And I think that's great for our society, that we can have respectful disagreements, that we're not just at war with each other over this. Because it seems like everybody has to be in their tribe, their political tribe nowadays. And I'm so glad that our political tribe of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, colon or no colon, isn't going to really splinter our friendship.
Dude, honestly, I don't think I ever use the colon either.
Yeah, it's really, like, intellectually I understand why the colon should be there, but to make it match with the other games in the series, I refuse to use it. So anyway,
I love the fact that you have a Switch, and this magnificent game got ported to the Switch, and yet we can spend upwards of 5 minutes or however long it's been discussing whether or not a colon should be in the title. I love this show, and I love being here.
Yes, after I beg for money, of course. The priorities of this podcast, it's certainly in order. I'll say that much. So yes, I've got a Switch, and I got a Switch 7 days before Tropical Freeze for the Switch came out. I got it the Friday before May 4th was when it came out. Yeah, May. So, anyway, I went to Target because I was thinking, I need to get it at least a week out because I was afraid that for whatever reason, maybe the stores would be sold out. Luckily, Target had plenty of Switches, so I was able to get. I got the one with the Joy-Cons that were red and blue.
Good.
That up. Yeah, because I normally, like, in my angsty late teens, early 20s, I would have gone for the all black. But I need some color in my life, damn it. And, speaking of political tribes, I like how, you got to have the red and you got to have the blue. They balance each other out. And you have a complete experience then. Healing America with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Now, how tempted were you to splurge a little and go ahead and get the neon yellow Joy-Cons? I know they're not banana yellow, but were you tempted by those?
I was not. Basically, I don't want I don't know. I wanted to get one of the standard original ones. Because even though I'm a late adopter to the Switch, I still wanted to basically have that early adopter experience, if that makes any sense. So I got a Switch the Friday, the week before Tropical Freeze for the Switch came out. Did not get a game with it, though. So...
No, you had this great post on Twitter a couple of weeks ago where you showed... You said that you've had a Switch for 5 days. You've gotten 0 games, but you have 2 different carrying cases.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this up. They released 2 different Tropical Freeze carrying cases, travel cases for the Switch. And $19.99 each. GameStop has one that has Donkey, Diddy, and Dixie on it with some snowmats in the background. The Lost Mangroves iconography, similar in look to the original box art, except they're not bursting through the ice. They're posing. Cranky is not on this for whatever reason, which sort of bugs me, but whatever.
Ageism, blatant ageism.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're over 50 and they push you out the door on these traveling cases. So I got that one, and then I quickly caught wind. I'm running DK Vine social media accounts. People tell you things. It's a great way to keep informed. But I found out that Target had one that just has Funky on it. Funky Surfing. It's the new Funky mode. The already iconic memorific. What do you call it? The side chevron? I don't know what you would. The thing on the side of the case. So it's that image, and I was like, well, I like the one I got. Diddy Kong's my favorite character. I love Dixie Kong as well, and I like Donkey Kong. So this one's a nice one to have.
Wait, you like Donkey Kong?
I mean, it compares, and those 3. Diddy, Dixie, they're above Donkey Kong. I like Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong's not my favorite Donkey Kong character. So, but I think maybe a day and a half passed before I started getting the nervous shakes, the sweats, and I was like, I've got to get this Funky Kong case. I have to have it. There's this piece of Donkey Kong merchandise just sitting in my local Target, and I don't have it. And so, yeah, I broke down, I ran out, and I got that. So, this was all before the game came out, all before I had a game for the Switch, all before I actually unboxed my Switch.
I mean, for the price that you spent on 2 carrying cases, you could have gotten, you probably could have gotten, Mario vs. Rabbids, which is going to have that Donkey Kong DLC, used or something.
Here's the thing, Josh. I don't regret my choice, and
I'm not one to tell you how to spend your money, especially on Switch stuff. I splurged so hard that when I've been playing Tropical Freeze, I've been using 2 green Joy-Cons, and if you know what you have to do to get 2 green Joy-Cons, you know how stupidly ridiculous that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So don't listen to my advice when it comes to this stuff.
Well, I'm also, I have to go on a family vacation. I have to visit my wife's relatives in Wisconsin in the middle of the summer. And so I'm obviously taking my Switch with me. So I like that I have an option now. Will I feel like Funky, or will I feel like the main 3 Kongs to get me through this Wisconsin trip? I'm leaning towards Funky right now, but we'll see how I feel come July. Anyway, so yeah, that was my first week of being a Switch owner. People call it Switchmas when you get a Switch. Mine was more like the 8 days of Hanukkah, in that it was very prolonged, stretched out, and I got many gifts along the way before the event concluded. So I got Tropical Freeze for the Switch the morning of May 4th. May the 4th be with you, which I generally hate as far as... It just seems like such a forced corporate holiday. Like, DK Vine, we have Copcock Day, which is authentic. It's gritty. It's real. May the 4th be with you seems like it was something that was like on the internet and then got co-opted by Lucasfilm and Disney, and it just feels hollow and sad to me. But hey, whatever.
And the odd thing about it to me is that like the anniversary of the release of the first Star Wars movie is on May 25th. So wouldn't that be a better day for Star Wars?
But May the 4th be with you. See, it's kind of a pun. So it's anyway. So May,
but not a really clever pun.
Yeah, well, I would say May the Funk be with you on that day, which is terrible, and it works in no way whatsoever, but that was my little rebellion. So I reserved it at GameStop, went into GameStop, just so... Because I love the feeling that, I reserved a Donkey Kong game here at GameStop. What, do you want to make something of it? There's just this attitude... I think it's from the mid-aughts, or the noughties, or whatever you want to call it, when... You did get weird looks whenever you would reserve a Donkey Kong game. Because I remember, I just made a Facebook post about this last night, but I remember picking up DK Jungle Climber after reserving it at GameStop. And they were just baffled that, one, somebody reserved it, and two, somebody was buying it. So, I just love that.
I've had those experiences too. Yeah. I went to a midnight launch at GameStop for Uncharted 3 in 2011, and I was the only person there picking up Sonic Generations, which came out on the same day.
Yeah, I remember the midnight launch for the Xbox 360, and I was the only one picking up Perfect Dark Zero.
Really? That surprises me, actually.
Oh, yeah, no. At that point, I was like, oh, God, Rare's in trouble, aren't they?
Like, I think of Perfect Dark Zero as being like a big deal for the 360 launch anyway. Like, that was when people still had some hope.
It was supposed to be, yeah, but anyway. Obviously, things have turned around now for Rare and Donkey Kong, so...
Yeah.
For as much as people have a doom and gloom attitude about the state of the world today, the state of Donkey Kong and Rare is certainly much better than it was a decade ago. So, from a fandom perspective, things are going great. Anyway, so I got Tropical Freeze and brought it home, and I had the dilemma because there's a reversible cover, Josh, on the game case.
Buy two copies. Duh. Easy. Solved.
So, I forget who, and I apologize that I don't remember who, but somebody on Twitter said, I am shocked that you did not buy two copies just to display both. And so... If they actually sold two different copies and they were not reversible, I may have been tempted. But since they're both there on this one, I don't feel the pressing need to do it. And
in all honesty, no. All joking aside, it would not have surprised me in the least.
I know what my reputation is, and granted, I am the guy who just spent 20 minutes talking about how he bought two Switch carrying cases before he had a game. And then spent 20 minutes before that arguing about the use of a colon in the title, all before he's actually talked about the game itself. So I understand why I have this reputation.
Now, wait a minute, Hyle. Before we can get into talking about the game, we need to hear about your Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze reservation experience. What was it like when you reserved the game?
So I went into GameStop and I reserved it. and the guy said, that's when I... So I reserved it, and I also bought the Switch case at the first case I got with Donkey Diddy and Dixie. So he tried to like say, hey, if you want to bring in your used game, and I told him I'm a filthy hoarder. There's no way I'm going to sell you any games I have. I don't do that. Homie, don't play that, as they used to say way back when. And so he just looked at us like, yeah, but we also take back, I don't know, car batteries or whatever. I don't know what he was saying. I was tuning him out at that point. And I said, I am a hoarder. It's not going to happen. That was my Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze (Switch) reservation experience. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I didn't feel like that warranted a feature article, but I know. So anyway, I quickly realized, for reasons we'll get into at the end of the episode, that I wanted Funky displayed. So I had to be very carefully take out the sleeve, because I couldn't bend it, I couldn't crease it, I didn't want to damage it in any way. I felt like in that Nicolas Cage movie National Treasure, when they were handling the Declaration of Independence, that's what it felt like, taking out that game cover for me and flipping it around. And it's so used to being folded in the one direction that you have to make sure it like gets in there just right so it can properly bend then, spine and all. So anyway, that was an interesting experience, but I'm glad I did it because Tox is on the back, and my only regret, Josh, is that they did not have in the corner, the new Funky mode on the regular cover. If they didn't have like old original mode with the other 4 Kongs,
that would have been very good. Yes,
cover. That would have been great. But regardless, I'm happy with the Funky cover. Is that what you've displayed it as, or?
Yeah, I just I pre-ordered it from Amazon, which is mostly what I do these days. Just because with Amazon Prime, like, you get a discount off of like pre-ordered games. But yeah, I got it. I got it in the mail and pretty much immediately took it out and flipped it around to the Funky cover.
I weighed doing the Amazon Prime thing because, yeah, you get a discount, but I guess I just like the voyeurism of buying a Donkey Kong game and having a human interact with you as you buy it.
You like making eye contact with those confused, terrified GameStop employees. I get that.
I do, because I wanted to come up why I'm buying Donkey Kong. I want to provoke them, basically, into revealing how much of a weirdo I am, and they're very cordial, and it never really happens the way I envision it in my head. I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep trying to really wig them out, and so
they're like, "Do you want to pre-order Hyrule Warriors?" And then you just punch them in the face.
Well, yeah, I went into a GameStop when I was a couple weeks before I bought a Switch. I was looking just at Switches, just I guess like hyping myself up for the eventual purchase, and the guy, he was like, "Oh," at that point they had the Tropical Freeze cases out for reservation purposes, and he was like, "Oh yeah, do you have a Switch? Donkey Kong's coming out," and I was like, "Oh, I know," and he's like, I'm going to get a Switch just for Donkey Kong. He's like, well, you got to get a Switch for more than just Donkey Kong. You get Kirby, and I cut him off, and I said, I'm getting a Switch just for Donkey Kong. That's all I need. And then the conversation very awkwardly died at that point, which pleased me, and my wife was with me too, and she was just like glaring at me like, why are you the way you are? And I don't know. I feel like she should have known what she was getting herself into, to be fair. No, she's very supportive, don't get me wrong. But she likes taking the piss out of me. Not in the, like, Russia hotel room way, but, So, Josh, the Switch. Real quick thoughts on the Switch, just in general. These are my ad hoc Switch first impressions. I love the Switch. It's great. I think I've relayed on this show many times in the past that as I've gotten older, I find myself gravitating more towards handheld gaming, or at least I would like to. Obviously, for something like Sea of Thieves, I want to sit down in front of the TV and have the full console experience. But I'm so busy. I know you feel the same way with running the Geek Critique and doing all these very, very in-depth videos that you feel like at sometimes you're too busy making content about video games to actually play video games. And especially when you're like living with your significant other, then that opens up all this time you suddenly you don't have anymore to play games. So the experience of having just a game in my hand, being able to go into any room and play it in, my downtime or while I'm working on something else, multitasking, or let's be honest, we're all adults here while we're on the toilet. It's great. And I love that it's a console experience that I can take everywhere. And, I love the feeling of it in my hands. The buttons are crunchy. I love the crunchiness of the buttons on the Joy-Con. I don't have the Pro Controller yet, but, I just like the satisfying click you get with them. And I'm surprised how lightweight it is. I was not expecting it to be this light in my hands. So
and so have you tried the Joy-Con grip then as well?
I've tried that. I tried that at E3. I tried that. I've tried that many times on store demos. I'm not a fan of it. I don't really like the Joy-Cons in each hand. I have to put it in the what do you call it? The holster?
No, that is the Joy-Con grip, right?
Oh, is that the Joy? I don't know the terminology yet.
Right.
I thought you meant just gripping the Joy-Cons in my hands was the Joy-Con grip. I thought that was like just the shorthand for the Joy-Con grip. It's like a dance. It's like, come on everybody, let's do the twist. Let's do the Joy-Con grip.
No, I mean I can see that. Like just holding a Joy-Con like vertically in your hand, it's not nearly as like substantial as like the Wii remote, for example, was.
Yeah. It's what. Okay, I like having a certain amount of heft, whether it be in a controller or a handheld device. The Wii U was ridiculous, though. The Wii U tablet or whatever you call it, the
gamepad.
The gamepad. It's I've already forgotten because fuck the Wii U. Many great games, but fuck the Wii U.
Dude, as much as you joke about being like a paid Microsoft shill, I could probably make the same jokes about being a paid Nintendo shill. The way I know this terminology for some reason.
But I loved like the concept of the gamepad when it was announced, and when I initially was playing it, when Tropical Freeze came out, I got a Wii U for Tropical Freeze first go around. And I loved it at first, but as time has gone on, it just hurts the hands. Like, marathon gaming sessions are just a miserable slog when you use the gamepad. So the Switch is much improved on that. Just the I don't know, ergonomic design of it is just slightly better than the gamepad. So, like, when you have it on the go, and the Joy-Con grip, it's great. I like it. I mean, it's obviously no GameCube controller, but you know, it'll suffice.
No, I've like the Joy-Cons and the way that they have to click together into the system, or they can click into the Joy-Con grip. Like, I can see that they had to sort of balance functionality with portability. It's sort of this. I think we talked about this on the Switch First Impressions podcast last year. Is that like Nintendo's handhelds, like the 3DS and going all the way back to the Game Boy, aside from the original GBA, oddly enough, but they were always very square. They were always very, like, they focused on being portable systems over being comfortable controllers, I guess, and the Joy-Cons kind of have to, like, ride the line between those two extremes.
I agree. But, you know, ordinarily I don't like that level of compromise, because I feel like you're just kind of handicapping yourself and not having the best experience by trying to make the best experience for every gamer. But in this case, I don't have really any issues with it, and I like the versatility of it. You know, I like having the option. I've honestly played it more as a handheld than I have using it on my television, and I mean that. I haven't even taken it outside of my home. I've been playing it in my office, my UK Line office, or even, you know, when I'm like just on the couch with my wife, you know, we're watching Netflix. Ironically enough, still using the Wii U app for the Netflix. The Wii U is an excellent Netflix machine. I will give it that much. The Switch, unfortunately, cannot play Netflix. Can it? No, it can.
No, not yet.
Yeah, that's kind of silly to me. But anyway, everything else I do really like about the Switch. So I am happy I have one, and you know, I'm excited now to get all of these games. I need to get Mario plus Rabbids. I obviously need to get the ukulele port of the Switch. I'm looking forward to playing that on the Switch, because I've heard nothing but good things about the Switch version.
Oh, it's great. I was actually just getting back into that over the past couple of days, weirdly enough.
I need to get back into it because they're about to announce all this Yuka DLC or whatever. So I'm thinking that's probably going to happen around E3. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah, I need to get that. I need to eventually get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So yeah, and then Mario Tennis Aces I'll pick up as well. So yeah, suddenly I have this bounty of games I can play now that I actually have the current Nintendo console. Imagine
but not
that.
Mario Odyssey. That's not DKU.
Yeah, people are getting on my case because I'm not getting Mario Odyssey or Legend of Zelda, whatchamacallit, of the Wild. Yeah, Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
There you go.
I don't even know what you call it when you put the Joy-Cons in the holster, okay? Give me a break, alright? If it's not...
I would play whatchamacallit of the Wild.
If it doesn't have a gorilla's butt in it, I somehow don't have any attention span for it. Yes, I will get Breath of the Wild. I will get Mario Odyssey. I will. But unfortunately, I have to prioritize what's essentially my business, which is DK Vine, over anything else, which would be my leisure gaming. And unfortunately, Donkey Kong... Well, we can have that argument later about whether Donkey Kong's in Odyssey or not.
We would be here all night.
I don't think it would be quite as intense as the colon or no colon debate, but...
No, nothing could be. Let's be honest.
Alright, let's actually talk about the game, Josh. New funky mode is really what we have to discuss, because the original Tropical Freeze is included with it, which is great. And I was delighted to see all but Donkey Kong's nose, weirdly enough. They've got the I don't like his new nose. I'm going to be perfectly frank. I don't like the way they've designed his in-game model, his nose. I think it's ugly, especially since the opening cinema and what have you. They don't use the new nose, so it's like, okay, I don't like Donkey Kong's nose, is what I'm saying. And is it a prosthetic nose? Is it what's the explanation for this nose? Honestly, I think it's just gonna have to be like Diddy's Blue Eyes, where it's just a trick of the lighting. But
there you go.
Besides Donkey Kong's nose, Tropical Freeze, the original version, is included. But I think the substantial thing to discuss is new funky mode.
Of course.
So, for starters, I do love the little bits that Retro added to this to make it more Funky's game than anything else. On the menu when you're selecting the file or whatever, and like the controller options, and you got Funky kind of perving at you from the bushes, and then just being a stoner weirdo with his snorkel, like.
And
that's
the way
great.
that the music itself will get a little addition to it whenever he's on screen on the title screen.
Yeah. That's just the little touches of absurdity and just the celebration of character itself that I've always loved about the Donkey Kong Country series, going back to Rare. And I like that Retro has really just gone all in with the character Funky Kong here. Now, there is, I'm a little disappointed that they didn't do more with it, because I feel like new Funky mode should be basically Funky's game, like a Funky Kong solo game with the other Kongs, popping in when you need them. A new opening cinema would have been great, because it really does create this kind of cognitive dissonance, a discrepancy, when you've got the other four Kongs at Donkey Kong's birthday, and then the Snowmads show up and they get blown away, and then all of a sudden, here's Funky, and he's really the star of this.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I started up new Funky mode, and there wasn't any explanation. Like the opening movie still played exactly as it always did, but there was no explanation whatsoever for why Funky was now the playable character.
Yeah, I understand why the port wouldn't have it, because it would probably have a small budget, and they couldn't afford to do it, because I think this opening movie, whatever story of Tropical Freeze, it looks like it would have been done by an outside company. So I imagine if they're porting a 4-year-old Wii U game to the Switch, they don't have the money to throw around to make such a thing possible. But, I would have been fine if it was something done with in-game models or something. I'm not fussy. I don't need something, the cinematic levels of the original Tropical Freeze opening, but I'm sure they spent a lot of money on it the first go-around. They didn't want to just bury it in a mode that people wouldn't play, so...
And they probably expect that most people will probably try Funky mode, because I'm not surprised to hear... I was going to ask, did you start with... Are you playing Funky mode first? Are you playing original mode first?
Of course, yeah.
But I expect that, like me, you've already played the original, you're going to try the new content.
Exactly. Now, like, when I eventually sit down to play this game 100%, I will play original mode and funky mode, and I'll probably play original mode first, just to kind of... Well, we'll get into that as well, but, again, I'm saving that for the end of the episode. But, I mean, I don't think people would have minded if they just did something with the in-game models, or if they just cut off the opening cinema altogether. I don't think we needed it. Maybe something where it's like Funky flying in his barrel plane, and then the other Kongs blow by and he gets caught up in the same, whatever gust, and he gets thrown out, and just something to kind of set up why Funky is here and what's going on.
Yeah, it does seem like with all the little extra accoutrements they added, that having something like that couldn't have broken the budget. Like, still playing the opening cutscene and then doing something like that wouldn't have been that weird. And I think it's because that we got so many other little extras, like the extras on the title screen and all the animations and all these other things, that one thing kind of stands out about it.
Yeah, I agree. And I would have also liked some of the other DK-centric elements of the game's plot. I'm specifically thinking of, and it's this episode's YouTube and SoundCloud artwork. It's the presence in the Kong temples that have the Snowmad ruins in there. They're supposed to be like the presents that were at Donkey Kong's birthday party. So it would have been great if they could have switched those out for something more related to Funky, like his stash box or something. Obviously not that like pointed of a reference that Nintendo's never going to officially acknowledge, but something. I don't know, a beach ball or something. I don't know, but a boombox.
Man, I feel like an idiot, but I guess like this is why you're the super like world building lore guy, and I'm like more focused on gameplay. I never put together the fact that those presents were supposed to be from DK's birthday party. I never even thought about it. I never questioned it.
It's just my experience playing Conker's Pocket Tales, because that again that was a birthday party that was ruined and you had to find the presents, and I mean that's obviously Retro was inspired by that classic masterpiece, but
who wouldn't be?
No, it's fine, though, because I just feel like it's those little elements in the game that weren't switched out for Funky that makes it seem a little weird, because so much was altered for Funky. Even the DK, the swirling banana, the Batman 66 kind of, I don't know, what do you call it, with the when that comes up, and you got the bananas with the DK logo. They even switched that out to an FK for Funky. Mm-hmm. And that's a detail I don't think anybody would have minded they not switched out, but I think because they did, then the things that were left in makes it seem a little weird. And again, shoestring budget, this is just a port of a Wii U game. They don't have all the money in the world to throw around for it, so I am understandable about that. It's just a little disappointing all the same, because everything else is spot on.
Given the fact that this is what Retro's been working on for 4 years, yeah.
Clearly, this is all they've been working on, yeah. Thankfully, oh my god, I'm so glad that Nintendo announced Metroid Prime 4 at last E3, because we have not had that level of venomous discourse when it comes to this game.
It's been virtually non-existent, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my, it's night and day compared to the last go around. And of course it helps that the Switch already has a successful library, and Nintendo fans aren't like getting very antsy. It's not like the Donner Party here where we're just cannibalizing each other. It's a lot more measured and nuanced, which is what I want in video game online discourse. And again, it just where we are as a fan base now compared to where we were 4 years ago, it's remarkable how far we've come. So I want to talk about Funky's portrayal before we get into actually how he plays and the gameplay. I love what Retro has done here. I think this is just a perfect portrayal of Funky Kong. It's unabashedly a ridiculous, over-the-top parody or homage of early 1990s surfing culture. Just played almost completely straight, but just the absurdity of it being there itself is the humor. And, I've always... not always, but in the last 5 years, half decade, I thought that the Donkey Kong Country series should really celebrate those aspects of the 1990s because, one of the main criticisms of the series, which I don't agree with, and I think people are just kind of trying to look for reasons to slag it, but they say it's so dated, it's so 90s, but I think, the aspects of the series that may arguably be too 90s, they should celebrate that. They should embrace it, and Funky is the perfect venue to do it through. And I love that he is just a 90s surfer dude, and that's played completely straight, but again, that's where the humor is. So, and I like how bombastic Funky is, but not bombastic in the way they sometimes make Donkey Kong, where he's a big dumb gorilla, ha 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 ha. It's more, he's this ridiculous quasi-stoned surfer.
Yeah, I would say that this, one thing that's really impressive is just, you look at Funky's animations in, Donkey Kong Country 2, where he's, flipping up the sunglasses and raising the eyebrows and all that stuff, and it's if you extrapolate that to its logical conclusion, it's amazing just how well they captured his character in this game.
And let's be honest, I know DK Vine, we just read way more into these characters than what was ever actually there, but what we read into were just those little moments. There's dialogue, of course, but those animations also informed a lot about what we knew about the characters. And Retro had to do the same thing here. And to have those interpretations kind of match up with what the fans were seeing. And, the people working on this game were fans of the original, so there is going to be some 1-to-1 correlation there. But yeah, I have no qualms with how Funky was portrayed here. He's basically perfect. And I like how one aspect of Funky is that he's always trying to keep kind of his cool persona, or what he thinks is his cool persona, and he's always trying to seem like he's in control of the situation. So even when he, say, dies and he comes back up riding that balloon, he's just got this shit-eating grin on his face. And where the other Kongs, they look discouraged or sad or morose or despondent, Funky's just yeah, shit happens, what are you gonna do? And I love it. It's great. His idle animation is him waxing a surfboard with a banana peel, which is just that right degree. Yeah, that's
really, really great.
Yeah, it's just that right degree of ludicrous, just silliness. But it's also, Funky Kong. If he's just has nothing to do and he's just got a surfboard, he's going to wax it. So why not wax it with a banana? It's great.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. I love the fact that with Funky, they didn't try to... I think that's something that made it such a meme when the game was announced, even, is that they didn't try to modernize it. They didn't try to... They made Funky Kong just as bombastic as this game that he's appearing in, and it's really, really impressive, just how well he fits. If this had been a part of the original Wii U version, it would not feel out of place in any way, shape, or form, despite how over the top Funky is.
Yes. The Donkey Kong Country series, I think, wrongfully has this stigma where it was 90s, where, people say Diddy Kong is just this, edgy 90s kid character, archetype, but he's not. Besides the scenes in Donkey Kong Country 2 where he has the boombox and he puts his hat on backwards and he, besides that, there's really nothing about Diddy Kong that screams 1990s. I mean, baseball caps are just visual shorthand for I am a child, So
well, I think a lot of that does also just come from people looking at the pre-rendered ACM graphics of the original Country trilogy and sort of associating that with early efforts at computer graphics.
Right. But I think there's a difference between, say, the Diddy Kong or Dixie Kong and some of the other failed attempts at having animal mascot characters put out by all these companies around the same time, which some of those do scream 1990s very much. Mm-hmm. And the Kongs are
the nonstop early to mid 90s cavalcade of Sonic the Hedgehog clones. Yes.
I wasn't going to slag Sonic the Hedgehog in your presence. The clones. Yes, the clones. Sorry. No, nothing in the originals. The actual Sonic series would be worthy of disparagement. Of course not.
Of course not.
In all honesty, I'm not thinking of like Sonic or Tails or even Knuckles. I'm thinking of some of the like more when you get further deeper into the extended cast. Maybe.
Don't you dare denigrate the good name of Wave the Swallow, assuming you know who that is.
I don't. I'm sorry. But I didn't even know the name of Breath of the Wild earlier in this episode, so that's not a slight against Sonic the Hedgehog. That is me being completely ignorant if it's not remotely related to Donkey Kong. But no, Funky Kong, that what people miss though, the critics of the series, is Funky Kong is supposed to be a ridiculous, over-the-top 90s archetype. He's supposed to be that character. It's like Swanky Kong wears polyester. He has many trappings of a cheesy 70s game show host. That's his... I mean, let's be honest, a lot of the extended Kongs, they're just shit joke characters who were then developed a little bit further. Funky Kong started off as a shit joke character, and then they developed him into the Q of the Donkey Kong series. Mm-hmm. But at his heart, he is an early 90s surfing dude, and that's the extent of his character. It just because the series is from the mid-90s, or got its start in the mid-90s, doesn't mean he's outdated as a result. He was already a joke character when the original game came out. So I like.
And speaking of the mid-90s, it took me a minute to realize that you were talking about the Q from James Bond and not the Q from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No. I don't know who would be the Star Trek Q from the Donkey Kong series. I don't think there's an applicable.
Well, there's Lord of Games.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm talking about the main Donkey Kong series and not the extended Donkey Kong universe. But yes, we'll say Lord of Games would be the Q of the broader Donkey Kong universe. How does Funky Kong play, though? Because, of course, New Funky Mode is essentially... People have called it an easy mode, and I guess that's what it is. It's definitely a mode to make the game more accessible for novices or for casual gamers, because, let's be honest, Tropical Freeze is a brutal game if you're not well-versed in, one, platforming games, and two, if you haven't played Donkey Kong Country Returns. And even Donkey Kong Country Returns was brutally hard for... I hear all these stories about, the game sold incredibly well, but when kids actually played it, they gave up pretty early on because it was just too hard for them.
Yeah, and that I've had a first-hand encounter with that because while I was making the Tropical Freeze episode late last summer, I went to a game store and I was like, it feels like I originally bought Tropical Freeze digitally, but I was like, it feels like I'd finally like to have a box copy of that. And it just so happens that this dad and his son were trading in the game that day, and they ended up just selling it directly to me. And the dad told me he enjoyed, it looked like something he would enjoy, but he never even made it past the first world.
And I mean, I love that the Donkey Kong Country series is basically the AP advanced placement for platforming fans, but I don't think Nintendo successfully marketed it like that, and they definitely didn't market it, nor did it have the reputation as being for serious gamers, So I think that New Funky Mode is there to help kind of bridge that divide. And, I have mixed opinions on that because I love the challenge of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. It's my second favorite Donkey Kong Country game, and it comes very close to Donkey Kong Country 2, which would have been, something I couldn't even fathom before the game came out, that any game would dare come close to Country 2, especially a game not made by the original team. So, eager as I was to try New Funky Mode, I was also just thinking, yeah, but it's just going to be a novelty. It's going to be something that I'll play, but I'll always go back to the original mode. And it's kind of like the easy mode in Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the 3DS. It was it's kind of cool that they added this, but in all honesty, I don't really want to play this mode. I have not gotten that so far with New Funky Mode. Granted, these are my first impressions, and they're your first impressions, and I'll hear what you have to say here in a second. But so far, a week into playing it, I'm still really enjoying New Funky Mode, and quite honestly, I don't have any interest right now of going back to the original mode.
All right, so for people who don't have a Switch, or who are just thinking about picking up the game right now, let's sort of go into what it actually means to be playing in Funky Mode. And that is that that doesn't mean you play as Funky exclusively necessarily. You can still switch between Funky Kong, or you can switch back to Donkey Kong. And when you're playing as Donkey Kong, the game resembles the original mode, or the original release of Tropical Freeze, very, very closely for the most part. The only differences there are, I believe that each Kong has 3 hearts instead of 2, and also, and this is pretty significant, this is more significant than I thought it would be, when you collect a puzzle piece or a Kong letter in a stage, even if you die, it stays collected. So in other words, let's say that I collect the N, and then I die, and then I respawn. When I come back again, I won't have to collect the letter N again. So it also makes it easier in that way.
Yeah, it's not so much with the Kong letters, but it's similar to the high value collectibles in the original series, where you could just go in and start select, go into a completed stage, start select, and leave the level after collecting it. You don't have to actually finish the level. Now I believe you do still have to finish the level in Tropical Freeze, though. Not in New Funky Mode, though, right?
What's that?
But in New Funky Mode, do you have to finish the level, or can you just exit after collecting it?
I don't think you can exit, because when I read that prompt up on screen, explaining what Funky Mode was, I thought that's what it was going to be. But then I went in there and I had missed one of the Kong letters in the first world, and then I exited, and then it still didn't unlock the K Temple stage. So I think you still have to finish it. It's just that while you're in that level, the collectibles will stay collected even if you die.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
And that might not sound too significant, but it is, because a lot of the Kong letters are kind of in these places where it takes a little skill to get to them. There's an extra bit of danger in order for you to get it. They're not hidden out of the way. That's what the puzzle pieces are for. But it's okay, there's a letter N. What do I have to do to get it?
Right, exactly.
And that's significant, because you might be able to collect the letter and then fall into a pit, or crash into something, or run your Minecraft off the course, or something like that. And now when you come back, you won't have to get that letter again. So that's where the difficulty difference is on that.
Did you say Minecraft instead of Minecart?
I may have, yes.
just making sure that I'm hearing things correctly. I am drinking some Baja Blast right now that I have mixed with rum, because I'm still very deep into Sea of Thieves, but I'm also trying to celebrate Donkey Kong Country as well, so I have mixed Baja Blast with rum, and I will be providing this recipe at some point on DK Vine. And it tastes like shit, by the way, but that's what I'm drinking right now. So I'm just making sure that I'm still hearing things correctly.
I've been enjoying a Monster White Dragon tea. I've never tried one before, but if I start hallucinating creepers from Minecraft, I'll let you know.
And you can see the creepers in the DK Vinecraft server for only $2 a month. Back us on Patreon. Now, Funky, as far as the, mechanical differences of what the game allows. Let's talk about actually playing as Funky.
Right on.
And that experience, because that is where the majority of the more forgiving nature of New Funky Mode comes into play. Well, for starters, Funky Kong has, how many hearts is it? Is it 5 or 6?
He has 5. So he has 2 more hearts than all the other Kongs do in this mode. Funky So when you play as Donkey Kong, you still have Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky, just like in the original game. When you play as Cranky, unless you're playing in multiplayer, which I haven't gotten to do yet, then you're just all you ever have is Funky. The DK barrels are still there. They're FK barrels, and they'll refill all your hearts, but you never have a partner. And the fact of it is, you don't really need one, because Funky is basically like a combination of all of the other Kong's abilities and then some.
Yeah, and can I just point out, too, that I love that they just went ahead and had FK barrels, just because, of course, if any character is just going to walk around with the swagger enough to have his own DK barrels essentially say fuck, it's Funky Kong. So
his own DK barrels, which he himself can never, ever be inside of.
Yeah, that is a bit weird.
Well, I guess maybe he is in two-player mode, I'm not sure.
I mean, they're just a way to reset your hearts, I guess, but the way they're placed, the placement never really makes any sense for that, because they're usually at the beginning of a stage, or, you know, where you don't really need them that much. But, yeah, Funky Kong is, as we pretty much gathered when they first announced this game back in January, Funky Kong is essentially a hybridization of all of the playable Kongs. He's got the heft and the basic template of Donkey Kong, but he's got the utilities of all of the other Kongs for the most part.
When he stands on there's spikes all over the game that Cranky could pogo bounce on, but Funky will just stand on his surfboard, and he can just stand there indefinitely. He doesn't have to bounce or anything. He can do a double jump, very reminiscent of Dixie's lift, except it's there's less lag on it, so it's a lot more controllable. And then he can twirl his surfboard on the way down and jump, get an extension on his jump, similar to the way that Diddy's jetpack works.
Right. As far as the surfboard on the spikes go, I was a little confused at first, because I thought there would be a way to whip out his surfboard, and I thought you would have to manually do it, and I didn't realize
totally automatic.
It took me a while to figure out. I was trying to whip out the surfboard to do that even before we got to any spikes. I was trying to do that in the first stage, and was not having any success. And then I eventually realized, it's just an extra layer of animation, and you're basically invulnerable to spikes. Okay.
And it is kind of fantastic that even though there's no situation where you would ever need to do this in the game, you can still do the ground pound move while you're standing on the surfboard on the spikes, and there's a special animation for that.
Yeah. I do worry about his surfboard, though, because I know he tries to take care of it. You know, he waxes it with the banana peel and everything. But having it on those spikes, it's really going to get, not only scuffed up, but there's going to be puncture marks.
Maybe Funky sees it as you know how they inexplicably sell T-shirts that are already messed up. Maybe Funky sees those scuffs and marks on his surfboard as a badge of honor.
Maybe this is his adventuring surfboard. You know, he saves his really nice surfboards for surfing, like a normal person. And this is just the one he doesn't feel really bad about, having it be battle damaged and worn. By the way, the hovering surfboard, first seen in Donkey Kong Country 2, because that's what he's riding in Donkey Kong Country 2 when you go visit him. And so I love that there is just, whether intentional or not, that little bit of continuity that, yes, Funky has perfected the art of hovering on surfboards.
So let's talk about how that, having all these abilities and having 5 hearts on the character, and how that changes the experience of actually playing the game.
Well, it makes it a lot smoother to get through some stages, that's for sure. It also, if you're really used to Tropical Freeze like I am, and you've really played it quite a bit, it can also lead to some unintentional deaths, because sometimes I just kind of spam the whole surfboard hovering thing, and that gets me into situations that I can't recover from, and I just have to fall into the pit and die.
So the one thing that I see about Funky that seems like it's a little underpowered, and I don't know whether, like, I don't know if this was like to keep him from getting out of bounds on certain stages or what, but his hovering, that is, you hold down the button and then you can move back and forth on the surfboard and hover in midair, but that's a really, really, really slow process. So the reason that's the same thing that's happened to me, and the reason you get into these unrecoverable situations is because, you've exhausted your double jump, you're hovering in one direction or the other, but because you move left or right so slowly while you're doing that action, like, there's no way that you're going to make it to the platform before you fall off.
Yes. Yeah, that is basically my leading cause of death in New Funky Mode.
And that has thrown me off a few times too.
Yeah, I've already seen some like ridiculous speedruns with Funky in this, and I'm just kind of thinking, oh my god, I suck at Donkey Kong Country, seeing these maneuvers being pulled off. But I'm so used to the balance of Donkey Kong and then Diddy and especially Dixie, who I've played the most as my partner Kong in Tropical Freeze, and I'm so used to that it's going to take a while to get acclimated to Funky and the way he plays. And I said on Twitter, I really hope New Funky Mode doesn't basically cause my Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country, or at least retro Donkey Kong Country games, my skills in those to atrophy, because I'm definitely using a lot of Funky as a crutch. And I'm hoping when I go back and play the original mode or Donkey Kong Country Returns that I suddenly find myself basically incapable of actually playing the game as intended. So we shall see. Time will tell. But so far, I'm really enjoying the way Funky plays. It's novel enough that it's keeping me invested in playing these stages all over again. And it's a new experience.
How far have you gotten in the game so far, out of curiosity?
I am now in the third world, and I'm taking my time. I'm really savoring it. I don't want to just rush through it. But I've gotten through Autumn Heights, and as of this recording, I am at 3-1.
All right, I am at about the midway point of World 5, and I've played as Funky for almost the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't foresee myself not playing as Funky because, again, I'm playing New Funky Mode to play as Funky.
Exactly.
So I'm glad to have the option of having the other Kongs there. Should I ever miss them? If I need my hit of Cranky Kong, I can get that.
The one fun thing that I didn't realize was that I kind of took for granted about Tropical Freeze, I think, was sort of the variety that the different partner Kongs brought. Because, in some stages you could only get Diddy, in some stages you could only get Cranky. And that, was mainly just keeping me from playing with Dixie all the time. But, I do kind of find myself missing that kind of variety playing as Funky all the time, and admittedly that didn't happen until I've gotten, about this deep into the game. And it's no problem, because like you said, you can just switch to DK anytime, but that is one thing that I've noticed.
Well, I have to admit, I think it was the third level in the game, which is designed to show off Cranky Kong's abilities. When I was playing that, I was like, I kind of miss having these stages designed around one Kong in particular, because that...
I know what you mean, because, especially those early stages, I associate that stage with Cranky, and it's weird for him to not be there.
Right, or even getting to, say, Autumn Heights, which everybody said, I hope I don't trigger you here, Josh, everybody said it was a great Donkey Kong Country 3 homage, or at least had that feeling, the same kind of environment, and so many of the stages were centered around Dixie Kong in Autumn Heights, that I was missing that. I was missing, this is where I love playing with Dixie Kong, but I'm stuck with Funky. But I say that in a loving way. I'm not stuck with Funky. You could never be stuck with Funky. I enjoy every moment I spend with Funky Kong. But,
well, who wouldn't?
Yeah, you do miss the other Kongs, and I wish... I understand that there's no point in having, say, Dixie Kong on Funky's back. I understand that. It just... And that's why you can switch over to Donkey Kong and the other Kongs in New Funky Mode. It's just one of those things. It just the game wasn't designed to have a magic gorilla fly through it on a surfboard and So New Funky Mode is going to have some drawbacks, especially for die-hard fans of the original.
So, as far as New Funky Mode goes, as far as its effects on the game, like, I guess I have two sort of outlooks on this, and one is the way I think it would affect the game for a new player, and then the way that it affects the game for me.
Okay.
So as far as a new player goes, I totally understand why they did this. I totally understand, and I think it was a good call, because like we were talking about earlier with the kid who thought he'd like the game, couldn't even get through World 1, not everybody, and this is way more true now than it ever was in the 90s, not everybody plays games to be, like, beaten into the ground with a challenge. And I think that, like, even me when I was a kid, like, I beat all of the Sonic games originally using Game Genie codes because I wasn't good enough to beat them normally.
Right.
Like, I've never had a problem in any way with, like, including easy modes, including, like... And one thing that I really appreciate about it is that Funky Mode, it's not like the Super Guide was in Returns, let's put it like that. It's not so easy that it's just playing the game for you.
Yeah, it's not a glorified walkthrough on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's still a lot of challenge with New Funky Mode, and I do appreciate that. And I mean, granted, most times I've died it's because of my own stupidity and me just not being used to Funky, but it's still a lot of challenge getting those Kong letters, finding the puzzle pieces, just, you know, getting through the stages. There's a lot of fun to be had there. It just made more accessible now, I think, for all gamers, rather than those who have graduated to just this really, like, hyper intense focused level of platforming that Retro, the direction Retro took the series. And I mean, yeah, the original Donkey Kong Country games were hard, but I think Retro really ramped up the difficulty with Returns, and especially with Tropical Freeze. And so yeah, I think it's good to have that balance, and I'm hoping it will bring more kids into the series, and, you know, they'll become fans of it, and maybe then they can try original mode when they get really good with Funky, and
sure,
and grow their skills from there. I mean, you know, that's the way it used to be. You know, you once you get past the Game Genie stage and you really wanted to get good at a game, you would play it until you got good at it. So this kind of gives them a helping hand to lift them up into that world where I don't really think the original Tropical Freeze was that accessible. It was basically an all or nothing proposition. You either were already this good or you're going to get your ass handed to you.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And that sort of ties in, like, leads, I guess, into, like, how it affects the game for me personally. Because, like, the thing about, like, one thing that I really appreciate about it, compared to, I mean, we talked about the Super Guide, but that's kind of, like, nothing like that. Nintendo hasn't done anything like that in quite a while now. But in the more recent Mario games, there's been these things where, like, if you die enough times in a row, you get some kind of a super-powered power-up, where, like, you get an invincible Tanuki suit. And I would never, ever use those, because I was like, you know, well, that would just sort of defeat the purpose of the game for me.
I think it's patronizing, too. It's like, how dare you suggest I need this? Just give me have a little faith in me, Nintendo.
Yeah. But with Funky Mode, and I was really surprised by this, what I liken it more to is, and I said this on Twitter, and I had some people question me on this, but so I can hopefully sort of, like, extrapolate on what I was thinking here. What it really reminds me of is Hypersonic from Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
You'll have to explain it to me, Josh. Explain it to me, Josh.
All right. So everybody knows Supersonic. That's Sonic gets all the Chaos Emeralds. So you basically, you're super powered. You run faster. You jump higher, and that's and
then he snaps his fingers. Oh, spoilers! Sorry.
But in Sonic 3, there was also a set of Super Emeralds, and logically, when you get all the Super Emeralds, now you can become Hypersonic. Hypersonic is also invincible, also runs faster, also jumps higher, but also has this move called the Hyper Flash, where like you can hold the button in a direction, and you'll like when you jump, you'll rocket off in that direction. And what I found with it was that not only, of course, it makes the game extremely easy, but there's also really, really crazy things that you can pull off with that if you know the level layout and you know how the physics work. So it's actually like fun to play in and of itself. And that's one thing that I'm really noticing with Funky Mode is that like the degree of things that you can pull off and the way that it really opens up like the way that you can approach enemies and obstacles can be a whole lot of fun even for a more seasoned player.
That's it. Yeah, that's actually a very succinct way of putting it. Once you got past all the Magic Emerald stuff, which you lost me there, but yeah, really, it's just more ways to play Donkey Kong Country, and I'm never going to turn up my nose to that. It's like I said, it's bombastic. It's almost silly in a lot of ways, which is perfect for the character of Funky Kong. So I can even understand why they picked Funky Kong to headline this mode, and it's just a lot of fun to have a different way to play these stages and have it be so absurd and almost overpowered, but you get a visceral thrill from it. So yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, and I don't feel so bad like enjoying new Funky Mode so much when I think of it in those terms. Like I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm just being lazy, or I'm just taking the easy way out, or I'm not challenging myself properly. I'm just having fun, and really that's what video games are. They're a way to have fun.
And like I'll also say that it fits the way that I play the Switch more often than not, because with the Wii U, when I was playing Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, I was sat on the couch, I was looking at a television screen, playing Tropical Freeze was all I was doing. I was super focused in on it. But that's not always the experience that you want playing a game. That's not always the conditions that you want to play a game in. And I mostly play my Switch like laying in bed, listening to a podcast before I go to sleep. So to like be able to have Funky Mode there, where it's this easier mode, and it's this one where I can sometimes I'm running through a stage and I feel like, man, I'm taking a lot of hits, and I look up and I still have 2 hits, and I'm like, well, that's the same number of hits I still have as many hearts as I would have had in the original game. So just having this more like laid back experience for it is gonna get me to play the game more than I probably would in portable mode, especially.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so funny. I'm a big fan of the TV show Arrested Development, and I think it's so funny that May 4th, we got a remixed version of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which was made more accessible for the layman, essentially. And on that very same day, they released a remixed version of Arrested Development Season 4, re-edited to be more accessible for the layman. And I've been watching that, and while I'm playing Tropical Freeze, and I've been enjoying the remix Season 4 of Arrested Development, even though I may technically prefer the original Season 4. I appreciate how dense and how hard it is to understand what's going on, and how the jokes are structured. I've never seen anything like it. I can understand why it's so off-putting to so many people, though, so I'm glad there's another option so people can finally enjoy this season that I love, that a lot of people couldn't get into. And it's the same thing with Tropical Freeze. So it's kismet, I believe is the term I used in the DK Vine Inner Circle. It's kismet that 2 of my favorite properties got remixed versions on the exact same day that will hopefully bring in new fans to both.
And now that you've talked about Arrested Development, I understand how you felt when I was going on and on and on about Chaos Emeralds.
Real quick, we have a call that brings up one point that we do need to address, but I want to talk a little bit about Tox. What do you think about the character of Tox? We did a whole Kongversation mini when Tox was first revealed or sussed out by Game Explain, but what do you think about the character of Tox? Who, if you don't know, Tox is the character they have running Funky's Flying By in New Funky Mode. So, essentially, if you're playing as Funky and Funky visits Funky's flying by on the map screen, Funky Kong will not be there to sell Funky Kong things. He'll have his own animal buddy parrot that he trained to basically act just like him, named Tox. So what do you think about that character?
Well, Tox is like another one of those details that makes it so perplexing that the Funky Mode didn't get it like a specialized like in-game intro, because it's just another one of those things. Like Retro Studios is normally kind of like pragmatic about this stuff. Like whereas Rare would make a character for every single in-game function you could ever want. It's kind of a surprising that there wasn't like a menu screen Kong to explain that concept to you. Retro
I was
normally.
I was gonna say I'm surprised there wasn't a Kong for pausing the game. Just
Pausey Kong. But. So for Retro Studios to come up with a brand new character, with a brand new character model for this, like that kind of makes it like all the more special, I think.
Yes. Yeah, especially because it makes complete sense to have a doppelganger of Funky, and what better way to have a doppelganger of Funky than have it be a parrot, which would just mimic Funky Kong itself. Like it's well thought out, and it's that kind of absurd level of world building that Donkey Kong fans really love. And I think it took a while for Retro to really get on the same wavelength with the fan base. And you saw it a lot with Tropical Freeze. A lot of Tropical Freeze was answering the criticisms the fans had of Returns. Well, that doesn't feel like Donkey Kong. Well, that could have been different. Like they rectified so much of that little nitpicky shit that they could have just ignored, and most companies would have. But just the simple thing of having the characters actually moving around on the map screen.
Mm-hmm.
The Snowmans themselves were basically, no, they weren't the Kremlings, but they were definitely Retro looking at what the fans expected of antagonists in the Donkey Kong series, and kind of building those from the ground up. And they're Snowmans are essentially Kremlings, but without the crocodiles. And Tox is just such a great character, a great addition to the cast of characters and to the lore of Donkey Kong. And if this is Retro's like final statement ever with Donkey Kong, I mean, who knows what the future holds? But if it is, then it's just a nice cherry on top of the sundae that is their Donkey Kong Country duology.
I'm still holding out hope so hard for a trilogy, and the fact that, like, okay, so we know we got Bayonetta 1 and 2 on Switch, and we know Bayonetta 3 is coming. The fact that Tropical Freeze got a port, I hope it does well, and I hope there's more to it.
Look, when I say, I don't know whether Retro will ever make a new Donkey Kong game or not, that does not mean there won't be another Donkey Kong game or a Donkey Kong Country game, or that one is not in the works right now. I'm just saying I honestly don't know what Retro is working on. But I have to wonder, though, is Tox portrayed as sexually attracted to Squawks? The dialogue option, the dialogue that pops up sometimes where he says, "Do you think Squawks likes me?" I don't. A lot of people are interpreting that is Tox like into Squawks. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts on this, Josh. I really want to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm the gameplay guy, dude. I would usually leave some... I hadn't even thought about that, as usual. Like we were talking about with the presents earlier.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Like, it's actually a topic on the DK Vine forum. It's been on the main page of DK Vine when you see the like top 3 forum topics, or the most recent 3 forum topics with activity. That's been on the DK Vine page. Is Tox gay? I think is the very blunt topic title. I think it's great if he is. I think it's a little weird that our first openly gay Donkey Kong character, not Donkey Kong Universe character, but Donkey Kong series character, is a parrot. But I would think it would be a Kong. But hey, progress is progress. What are you gonna do? All right, we have.
I hope Squawks does like Tox. I ship it.
You're shipping them. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the future of the Donkey Kong series brings about for these Squawks Tox parent. Of course, what's going to happen is fans are reading way too much into it, and it's going to be like one of those like Sherlock, like Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock, and Watson, with Bilbo Watson, and people are going to be shipping them, and there's going to be no besides some subtext, there's going to be no indication those characters actually have romantic feelings for each other, and then fans are going to get very upset when they don't wind up together, and they're going to be like, what do you want? They're not actually romantically interested in each other, and that's the pratfalls of shipping, Josh, and why fans need to be careful when they do it. I ship Funky and Candy personally, and there's a lot of subtext there, but we did a whole episode about that, Nick and I, couple months back. So got a phone call I want to take that gets into, I think, the only point of criticism that this game is getting, because this game is getting great reviews. People are enthusiastic about it. It's the complete polar opposite of 2014, and it's like the tropical freeze. The polls shifted, like they said they were going to do on December 21st, 2012. The polls shifted, everything switched around. People love Tropical Freeze now. People are enthusiastic. It's getting fair reviews on gaming sites where people just had an axe to grind several years ago. And I think it's great, but there is one point of contention, especially among diehard Nintendo fans, and I think this call brings that up.
Yeah, what's going on? This is Mitchell Wolf's ex-boyfriend, and I had a question about the price point of Tropical Freeze. On Wii U, it was originally 50 US George Washingtons. On Switch, it's $60. And out of every single Wii U port / remastered version or whatever, this game in specific has gotten the most criticisms for its price point. And I want to know what your thoughts on that is. Thanks for the show. I hope you don't die.
Our calls are getting so bizarre. Thank you. I somehow doubt you ever dated Mitchell Wolf. Thank you for the call.
Is that like his way of signing off? Like, some people say, all right, see you later. He just ends every interaction with people with, I hope you don't die.
I mean, to be fair, that is a very, very kind statement to make when you really think about it. I mean, when I'm road raging in traffic, I hope everybody around me dies. So to flip that on its head and say, I hope you don't die, really shows a level of compassion that's rare in society today. The price point, Josh, this is something that is kind of a bugaboo with certain people. Not me, because I'm willing to spend $500 on a Donkey Kong Country game. I'm willing to spend $40 on just the cases to transport Donkey Kong Country games. But I understand, especially when you compare it to the Wii U version, which was $10 cheaper, it's a point of controversy. What are your thoughts on this, you being the more well-rounded gamer than I?
Well, like you said, you and I have to kind of approach this with a degree of as much objectivity as possible, because I'm in the same boat as you. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was my second favorite game of 2014. It's one of my favorite platformers of all time, and I am more than happy to spend full price again to get it on the Switch and to get it in a form that I can take anywhere. That doesn't mean that I think that everybody who raises this, what I think is a very fair criticism, that I don't think that's fair, that I don't think that they have a point.
I guess I can't be objective about it because, honestly, I don't care. I don't care. I mean, is it a little ridiculous? Yes, but, I mean, I don't know what Nintendo's rationale is here. What was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe when it was released? How much did that? 60. So, okay, so it's pretty much a standard price point then for the Switch.
Yes.
Okay, especially for Nintendo games, the first party Nintendo releases. Okay.
But now here's sort of the counter argument that people have to that, is that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe also came with all of Mario Kart 8's DLC. And it had the 2 new characters, and it had the battle mode. So it really was, $60 for all of that, was, I think, a lot more of a fair price point to people than, Funky mode.
Right, but I mean, when you consider all of the joy that funky mode brings to my face and your face, I mean, see, for me, the argument is, boy, I feel ripped off considering I spent all that money on the Mario Kart 8 DLC when it was coming out drip by drip, and then to have it be more reasonably priced coming out later for the Switch. I don't know. Like, you could make an argument both ways. For me, I think Tropical Freeze, the rationale here is, well, a lot of people didn't buy it for the Wii U, and I think having it be sold at a cheaper price would have maybe indicated to people this isn't a game worth your time. Like, it's a budget title, or it's just a reissue, and I think Nintendo wanted to market this as a new vital release, even if it wasn't, because people missed out on it the first time around. And I've essentially loved the marketing of Tropical Freeze Switch. I've loved that they've been treating it like it's a new game. I mean, by and large, they have. I mean, they kind of like whisper it, you know. I mean, the caveat of new funky mode is there was an old mode that came out several years ago, but for the most part, they've been treating it like it is this brand new thing, and they've been giving it the marketing push that the original game never really got. So it's been great to see, and I feel like for somebody who was around back in 2014 and who was like in the trenches, you know, fighting the fight for Tropical Freeze's honor, it's just gratifying to see it finally getting the support from Nintendo and from the gaming media. So I don't really care that they're charging the full Switch price for it, because, let's be honest, a lot of people, aside from maybe around 1 million gamers, did not buy it the first time around. So aside from those people, maybe Nintendo should have like done this thing where if you can prove you bought the original Tropical Freeze, we'll give you a discount. Otherwise, you're paying full price, buddy. I don't know.
Right. Well,
I don't have an issue with it, but I'm clearly not objective because I am a sick man.
Oh, I know. I didn't say let's be objective about this, because that would be impossible. I said let's be as objective as we can be. It really did surprise me. It really did surprise me just how much of an issue this was, or just how controversial this was. I don't think I really understood it until a couple of weeks ago in the build-up to Tropical Freeze and the hype period for the Switch version. Somebody posted my Tropical Freeze episode on the Switch subreddit, and the comments were just dominated by people like criticizing the fact, oh, it's a 4-year-old game that they're charging more for than it did when it first came out.
Yeah, but again, I think there's also that just the need to pick stuff apart online. Like,
that's true too.
I mean, yeah. Oh, people are being critical of a video game on Reddit. Stop the presses.
Sure.
I mean, yes, there's a valid point to make, but at the end of the day, the only people who I think really have a right to complain are the people who bought Tropical Freeze the first time around.
Yeah, and I mean, this really is like when Mario Kart 8 came out for the Switch last year, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe specifically, since we were we were going on about video game titles earlier.
Right.
It really was treated like by the masses, and like Mario Kart 8 was one of the Wii U's best-selling games. It might have been the best-selling game, but despite that, it was treated like a brand new Mario Kart by the vast majority of media when it came out on the Switch, just because most people didn't have a Wii U, most people had never experienced it before. And,
right, and to be perfectly honest, I was critical of that at the time. I was like, people, it's not a new Mario Kart game. Why is everybody losing their mind over this? And then, of course, you get Tropical Freeze and like, shut up, everybody, it's Tropical Freeze. Pay it some respect.
I'm glad you can at least, be honest with yourself about that sort of thing.
I'm a complete fucking hypocrite. I've owned it at this point. But, I mean, I get... Look, just because I am Mr. Donkey Kong Country, I am the super fan, or a super fan of the series, so I get it now, but I have to kind of experience it for myself to get it, and so I retroactively shame me from a year ago. I mean... So I've been on the other side of this argument. Sure, I do understand it, And I guess now that I actually own a Switch, though, for me, the portability really sells. Like, I know the Switch is a semi-portable, not fully portable, but, you know, that's the only part of the appeal. But to have Tropical Freeze on the go like that, I can play it in a fucking car, that is worth the extra $10 alone. Not to mention all of the bells and whistles they've added to it, all of the new ways to experience the game. So, yeah, I'll gladly pay another $10 for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the same experience. You're getting a lot more than you are with the Wii U version, just based on the hardware alone. Mm-hmm. The Wii U, it was such a limited system and such a limited experience, and it's just so stark now that I actually have a Switch, and I'll also so I can just shill for Microsoft because I am a hashtag fake paid actor. You know, the Xbox One and Windows 10, and there's so many ways to play those games now too, and to have so many ways, and to have the cross play, and just you have so many opportunities and options with both the Switch and the Xbox platforms that the Wii U just sucks. It just sucks. It's a system that it's still relatively modern because it came out, you know, around the same time as the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, but it feels like it's a relic. It feels like it's from 15 years ago. It's just ridiculous. So, you know what? Yeah, charge $60 for these games, Nintendo, because they basically are new experiences on the Switch. Once they get the stink of the Wii U off of them, they're new experiences.
And the other thing is, like, for, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's a 4-year-old game, it's a 4-year-old game. The thing about that is, like, technology and, like, graphics technology for video games and our expectations don't move forward nearly the way that they used to. Like, no. If Donkey Kong Country 1 had come out in 1998, it would have been a completely different game. But yes. If Tropical Freeze came out now, if this was the first release of Tropical Freeze, it would be the exact same as it was, and as it is now, and it wouldn't seem out of place in any way.
Well, honestly, it's because Tropical Freeze felt like one of the most advanced games for the Wii U, and the Wii U felt like it was like 5 to 10 years behind the times anyway when it was released. So it's Tropical Freeze is just basically caught up with the modern generation of gaming, which for the other companies, they're still on the same system they were when Tropical Freeze came out. So there's more overlap there than people like to think.
Hyle, I can tell, obviously, from the way that you talk about it, I think I had a much better experience with the Wii U than most people did, and I think I have a lot more affection for it to this day than you do.
I generally like the Wii U. I think it has a great lineup of games. It's just the hardware itself was just Nintendo being Nintendo.
No, I totally agree with that. The gamepad was like them trying to like latch on to what the trend was in 2010, but just 2 years later, by the time it had gone through R&D and by the time it was actually out, it was already a little behind the times. I totally get what you're saying with that.
Well, and they never utilized the gamepad to the fullest potential it had. I remember being so hyped about it when they announced the Wii U at that E3 and thinking the gameplay possibilities for this, it's a second screen. It's like the Nintendo DS or you know, or 3DS, but it's a physical second screen you're holding. This opens up so many different ways to play, and they did nothing with it. I mean, even Tropical Freeze just turned it off. I mean, you know,
it says a lot that the best games on the system barely use it, because I remember booting up Nintendo Land, like, on the day that the Wii U came out, and sitting there with it and being like, man, imagine, like, this is cool, but imagine when this is, like, refined, imagine when this is, like, standardized, and you have, like, entire games based around some of these really cool concepts, and then it just never happened.
It's the Nintendo peripheral, like, death trap that they always fall into. They have a really cool idea for technology. That's why I'm not excited about the Nintendo Labo. It's just a thing, and it's gonna exist for a while, and then people are gonna forget about it, and it's just gonna collect dust in your corner.
But we've gotten a little ways away from the Switch. The thing about the Switch is that its gimmick works. Its gimmick is executed, like, wonderfully. and that, like, it's something that's useful regardless of what type of a game you're playing or what type of gamer you are. Being able to switch from a handheld to a docked mode. And by the way, the one thing that I haven't gotten to say about Tropical Freeze on the Switch specifically is that it getting upscaled to 1080p. The original Wii U version ran in 720p and was upscaled to whatever your resolution was. But
Yeah.
the Switch version runs at a native 1080p, and I've never seen that make as much of a difference as it does in Tropical Freeze. That is a beautiful game, docked.
Absolutely. The game has never looked better, and it's almost staggering to see, like, true HD for Tropical Freeze, for Donkey Kong Country, and you just marvel at all of the details retro-packed into this world, and that alone is worth the extra $10. So maybe we can, like, parse it out. $2 for the true 1080 HD, $2 for funky mode, $2 for Tox, $2 for that reversible cover, which is pretty sweet. Eventually it'll all add up, and it'll be a bargain by the time we do the math. So 4 years. We say not a lot's changed in 4 years. Do you think Tropical Freeze, the experience itself, still holds up 4 years later?
Oh, absolutely. Like, this is totally an evergreen game for me. This is one of those games that I can go back and play it, like I think it'll hold up. I think it's held up well since 2014, and I think it'll hold up just fine going forward. It's like we've gotten to the point now where, you know, like the whole idea of a game like aging poorly is kind of something is largely something of the past, at least when it comes to traditional games. I'm sure with like VR that's gonna be a little bit different.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and I again, this is a point I brought up on Twitter because, you know, the age of social media, I bring up all the points I want to bring up on the show way before we actually record the show. One of my biggest laments about a video game fandom and the video game media industry, video game journalism, is that very rarely have video games been properly reevaluated. There's the initial critical reaction, and that can be skewed for many different reasons. Like for Tropical Freeze, it was because of what it was not versus what it actually was. But then very rarely have people gone back and said, you know what, that was actually a great game, and then the consensus overwhelmingly change. You see that in music, movies, things that have always been accessible even after their initial release. And I think with the video game industry, up until recent years, video games have been tethered to the platform they were released on. And so you very rarely had critical reevaluations. And, you know, trust me, as a Rare fan, especially as somebody who's remained a Rare fan through, you know, the early Xbox years into the present, you know, there's so many games I wish would have been critically reevaluated. I love Grab by the Ghoulies, and I just breaks my heart that people just still treat that as a punchline rather than actually a really fun game that, I'm sorry, just wasn't Banjo-Kazooie or Perfect Dark or whatever you wanted to be their first Xbox game. And when Tropical Freeze came out in 2014 and people were just giving it these ridiculously poor reviews, I think it was GameSpot gave it, you know, originally they gave it something like 5 out of 10, and then reluctantly they went back a day later and just like upped it by a point or something.
Yeah.
Still...
GameSpot said that it was held back by, quote, unimaginative level design.
Right. And it was just clearly whoever wrote this came in with preconceived notions. They were the wrong person to write this review, but that's the review they wrote. And so when you look at things like the Metacritic, you know, score that brings that down, and stuff that shouldn't matter, but it matters when people are looking for what games to play. And so, you know, Tropical Freeze became this game that was just this political flashpoint of, this is not the game Nintendo needs out right now, and they've released it after all of these platformers already, and I don't care what the actual merits of the game is, I don't like this game, and we're gonna just slag on it to show Nintendo what we really want. And, but now 4 years later, people are looking back on it, and they're saying, oh, that was, I mean, you saw the slow reevaluation of it, but it took it actually being released for the Switch for everybody to come back around and say, yeah, okay, it's a great, brilliant game, and it's one of the best platformers ever made.
And it's been so gratifying to see that over the years.
It's so great, and it really makes me hopeful for the future of the video game industry, that we are going to become less dogmatic with our views and a little bit more mellow when it comes to critical opinions, and rather than it be this game of one-upmanship, and again, to root for a game to fail because it's not a sequel to a game we want, or it's this or it's that or whatever. It makes me hopeful that we're gonna all be a little bit more mature, and we can also look back and say, hey, I was wrong about this. Like me in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I was wrong. But yeah, when look back at the Kongversation Season 2 and just the hand-wringing we did when we were just confronted with people absolutely not having Tropical Freeze, and now look where we are, and the game is celebrated, it's cherished, it's beloved. And it's been great to have you on this episode, Josh, because you have been a huge proponent for Tropical Freeze, and it's great to have this moment of victory with you.
Yeah,
as fans of the game, we can just say we did it. It's like VD Day, or that's what happens after Funky Kong whips out the FK barrel. That's VD Day. Real quick, I do want to bring up one more point,
sure,
and I'm going to go on a quick rant to end this episode. So, the question is, Josh, is New Funky Mode canonically a separate adventure from the original Tropical Freeze? Now, I said I'm displaying the New Funky Mode game cover, the reversible game cover. I'm displaying that, and there's a reason, and that's because, in my opinion, it has to be a brand new adventure. Now, hear me out. Okay. So, consider the following. The original Tropical Freeze is included in the game, but neither Tox nor Donkey Kong Switch are present in that version. They didn't go back and re-edit that. In that version, Donkey Kong is still playing a Nintendo 3DS. He's only playing a Switch in New Funky Mode when you select Donkey Kong, obviously. Since original Tropical Freeze had to take place on October 21st of 2013 to obviously match up with Donkey Kong's birthday as first established in Mario Party 4, as well as it being autumn in Autumn Heights, and the fact that the game was originally delayed from the fall to February of 2014. Oh, additionally, the Orionid meteor shower of October 2013 was approaching its peak on October 21st, which would actually correspond perfectly with the meteor shower seen in the stage Zipline Shrine, but that's besides the point. Anyway, Donkey Kong could not have a Switch in that version, but he's got one here. So, does Tropical Freeze for the Switch New Funky Mode take place on October 21st, 2017, or even in the future, October 21st, 2018? It would obviously mean that the Snowmats would be stupid enough to do the exact same thing again, but they are basically Kremlin XPs, and let's be honest, the Kremlins do that quite a bit. They even raised the island that one time. So anyway, could this all be meta-commentary on the 4-year election cycles and how people vote against their self-interest time and time again, letting political tribalism overtake them and never learning their lessons from the past? It would also mean that Frederick got his magic horn back, sure, but there's a missing story there about Donkey Kong misplacing it. That could also be meta-commentary about political parties losing sight of what's important to the voters and thus failing to connect with them, and you know, they should really be reaching out to them, and that opens up the opportunity for people like the Somads to come in and take advantage of them. So, holy shit, Josh, is this happening? Is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze Switch, in the parentheses, really the most salient political commentary of our times?
Hyle! How do we know that that's not a Funky Kong animatronic?
You mean a hologram?
I hope you don't die.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.